the house rescheduled a meeting with me at 5 p.m. And so when he calls, I got to answer. Brendan Jones is a friend of mine, and so I was a little bit late getting down here, so I apologize to keep y'all waiting, but it's good to be back in Duplin County. And this gentleman asked me if I minded being recorded. I definitely don't. Anything I say is something I've said before, and anybody's welcome to hear anything I say at any time, so I'm glad to have y'all here in the room and a larger audience, I guess, on the internet. I don't have TikTok or Facebook, so I don't even know if I'll ever see that video, but I do understand those are helpful tools to okay. I do have a YouTube account. So, but thank y'all for having me. Since we're before a larger audience on the internet, I want to give y'all a brief history of the Sporting Dog Association and how I got involved in it. So, I'm 34 years old. I've been lobbying for about 8 years. That's as long as I've been an attorney. And before that, I worked at the General Assembly, worked for Senator Phil Berger and a couple of other members in different capacities. And so that's how I got into politics and learned a little bit about the members of the General Assembly, met a few of them. I've been hanging around the building since my childhood because my grandmother was a longtime state employee and worked for several different state senators. So several years ago, a business partner of mine purchased a consulting firm from Joe and Henry McLeese, who used to represent y'all for many, many years. And Jackson Stansel is that partner of mine. We still work together. He's part of your lobbying team, and his son, KJ, Stansel is also on the lobbying team, so the three of us do this work together. But he came to me several years ago and said, I've got this new book of business, and I got a plan for how to handle most of it, but I don't hunt with dogs, and I'm not an attorney, so would you be willing to take a look at it? And I've hunted with dogs a good bit, not as much as most of y'all in this room, but I do enjoy bear hunting with dogs. And then definitely enjoy bird dogs, waterfowl. And I grew up a still hunter, but I got into the dogging later in life, and I love it. I mean, once you do it, you get hooked on it, as y'all know. I mean, it's so much fun. You can't have more fun than running a bear or a deer with dogs. So I have a son. I care about protecting this for the future. For his sake, he's 3 years old, and I want him to be able to come down here and hunt with you guys and have the same experiences that I was able to have as a young man. So I agreed to do it. This isn't the most profitable client, and it's definitely not the easiest. Probably the hardest client I got is the Sporting Dog Association, just because of the issues that come up all over the state and at the state legislature. But it's one that I enjoy doing because I got a personal connection to it. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing it. I'm proud to do it, and I appreciate what y'all do to support the organization. Large groups like the Duplin-Onslow Hunt Club, Albemarle Houndsman, Northern Dismal, Jones County, Lenoir County, Warren County, those larger Houndsman associations are the primary funding source for the statewide association. We do have individual memberships. We've got club memberships. All of those are pieces to the puzzle, but without large donors like y'all, we would not exist. I wouldn't be able to do this, so I appreciate what y'all do. We're governed by an 11-member board. When Joe and Henry ran the show, it used to be just three folks. It was Joe, Henry, and Keith Loudermilk, who's still our president. But it was just a 3-member small nonprofit board, and they kind of controlled it and did a great job with it best they could. But we've reorganized. I didn't want to be on the board I wanted to work for you guys. I didn't want to control anything or be a part of any, I'm not on the bank account. I'm totally separate. I'm just a hired person. I'm here as long as the dog hunting community wants me to be here. They can fire me at any time. It's a year-to-year contract. So we've got that 11-member board set up, and it's a diverse group from all across the state. It's folks that hunt primarily game lands. It's folks that are in established clubs. It's folks from Eastern North Carolina. Tony is on our board, so you got a representative from Duplin-Onslow on the board. We've got a couple of folks from Western North Carolina, so it is statewide. It's coon hunters, deer dog hunters, bear dog hunters, squirrel dog hunters. Anybody that hunts with a dog and cares about sporting dogs is represented on the board and in our membership, and we represent everybody who enjoys being with the dog outside, basically. So as soon as I jumped on board with Jackson and later his son KJ, we had issues almost immediately at the General Assembly. One of the big issues we've been fighting for several years is this written permission question that y'all have heard about, whether you need written permission on every tract of land that you hunt. It seems like a good idea to some folks that don't understand how it works in rural parts of the state. The idea that you need permission to hunt on somebody's land, that's universal. We all don't want to be where we're not supposed to be, and you want to work with landowners and be responsible and try to stay off of people's property as best you can. But, of course, dogs don't read signs and dogs don't know property lines. A lot of times you'll have leases strung together, and I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know, where you'll have 10, 15,000 acres, and there's a bunch of different tracts of land that are mixed in, and some of those tracts of land have been unoccupied for a long period of time. So you're not going to get written permission or even verbal permission on all those little individual parcels that make up large hunting leases in rural North Carolina. And not to mention the fact that local governments currently can require written permission if they want to. So you're taking away local control by passing a statewide law to require it. Any local government, any county can pass written permission if they want to, and a lot of the counties have done so, but many of the rural ones have not yet. So that needs to stay a local issue because Hyde County is very different than Wake County. And you just shouldn't have the same set of rules for those two different situations. Now, there's other reasons not to do it. Liability is another one. A lot of landowners don't want to give you written permission because they feel like it opens them up to a certain amount of liability. If they've got something in writing that I'm allowing these group of hunters to be on their land, then they've got a higher burden to make sure that land is safe and everything else, whether if you just have kind of a policy where you know who's out there and that you just give them verbal permission, but you don't have anything in writing, then you may not be able to be held to that higher standard as far as who's on your land. So whether it's reality or just perception is reality sometimes, and a lot of landowners just don't want to give that written permission. So that's problematic for hunters. So for all those reasons and several others, this is a big problem for the dog hunting community. We have a good law in place, the Landowner Protection Act. This was carefully negotiated many years ago by Joe and Henry McLeese, several others in the dog hunting community, and some of y'all may have been a part of these discussions back in the 2011 timeframe. But even in the states, even in the counties that don't have written permission is the law if you post your property. That's the law. And so if you want to require written permission, all you have to do is paint your property or post it. And that, I understand that's a burden for some folks that have large tracts of land, but it's a good compromise. And so we're happy with the law how it is. We're advocating for the dog hunting community to get along with their neighbors and do the best they can to be good stewards of the land that they hunt on. But at the same time, we're not looking to have a statewide written permission law because of the so many unintended consequences. And that really would be the beginning of the end for dog hunting. So we fought that successfully thus far. It showed up in a couple of regulatory reform bills. Sometimes at the General Assembly, things will slip in and nobody's really paying attention. And that happened a couple of times in a reg reform bill, and it was able to be, we were able to successfully advocate for it to be removed pretty early on in the process. This last legislative session, it got more traction than it had ever before. Passed one chamber of the General Assembly, the North Carolina Senate passed the written permission law, and there were several reasons for that. It's not because every senator that voted for it hates dog hunting. There was a lot of different issues in members' districts from trespassers, just generally speaking. And so there was frustration on the part of some large landowners and farmers and just some regular folks about people trespassing on their land. Dog hunting just kind of got caught up in the mix. That written permission law wasn't necessarily targeted at dog hunters. There were certainly some legislators that sponsored it and promoted it that are not very friendly to dog hunting and are not necessarily on our side of a lot of these issues. But a lot of the folks that voted for it were voting for it just because they wanted to deal with trespassers. They thought it was a step in the right direction. So not every North Carolina senator that voted for that bill is against hunting or against dog hunting. But that bill is a problem for us, and so we went over to we advocated as best we could in the Senate. We had a couple of senators to stick with us, but overall, the Republican caucus decided to vote all pretty much one way in favor of the bill. The Democrats also generally voted in favor of it. I think almost all of them did. So we went over to the House, and we've had some good, productive discussions with the wildlife chairman, the Speaker's office, and several other key House members who are appropriations chairs and in other positions. And I've got a pretty good feel that that bill is not going to pass this year. And so last year was the long session. This year is the short session. Every bill that passed last year is eligible till December 31st of this year. So that bill is eligible all year round. We're going to have to keep an eye on it. But we had a good group come to Raleigh last year and advocate, Grassroots advocacy. A lot of folks showed up in orange and, spoke their mind in a respectful way. It was a great day. And then we've been able to do our job as lobbyists behind the scenes to talk with the leadership and just let them know how this is going to affect us. And so we've got a pretty good handle on it so far, but that's not going to be the end of the discussion. Even assuming that we're able to hold on to that for the rest of this year, that's going to come up year after year. And there's going to be other things that come up year after year that are even worse than that. Folks are moving into North Carolina at a record pace. It's a popular place to live and work, and we're the #1 state to do business a few years running. So that brings a lot of people from a lot of different states and a lot of folks that don't necessarily understand how it is down here in Duplin County or other parts of rural North Carolina where dog hunting is just a part of the